Hello and welcome to Psychology in Seattle. I'm your host, Kirk Honda, licensed therapist.
And I'm Jody Braverman, a semi-professional conversationalist.
My name is Umberto Castañeda, and I teach lambada lessons in high school.
I wanted to have an episode about dance movement therapy. So we came down here to Pioneer Building with my friend and colleague, Leif Tellman, who is an expert in dance movement therapy, practicing in dance movement therapy. And I thought we would have Leif Tellman explain and demonstrate what dance movement therapy is.
Dance movement therapy is a form of psychotherapy. So I'm also a licensed counselor. And so as a licensed counselor, I use movement and attention to the body as part of the process. And I do that in several ways that I'll talk about a little bit today. The other thing I wanted to say is that dance movement therapy is one of the creative arts therapies. There are 5 creative arts therapies. So there's art therapy, dance movement therapy, drama therapy, poetry therapy, and music therapy.
So people come to you to work on their problems. They come to this office, they hire you as a therapist, and you integrate dance and movement into the interventions to help them.
When people come here to my office for therapy, I see individual adults here. So usually the way I would use movement or attention to the body doesn't look like dance. Okay. We usually think of dance as something that happens with music and that sort of looks like dance. Like we all kind of know what dance looks like, right?
That looked like a dance.
And that kind of looked like dance, right?
Yeah. You greet your clients.
Right. I do use dance. I also use dance movement therapy with seniors in a nursing home. Okay. And there I do groups. We're in circles, and we do in fact use music, and it does look more like dance. And the purpose there is not so much psychotherapy as in the nursing home, what I'm doing there, it's more about fostering socialization, helping people connect with each other, helping them find what they can do rather than the focus, which is often on what they can't do. It's about creativity and storytelling and reminiscing and remembering other times in their lives they've danced and enjoying music and all that. In here, the movement, what I think of when I think of my practice, it's more like psychotherapy with an expanded palette of ways of working. So a lot of the time we're talking, like right now you can't see the area, but there's an area, couch and chairs where I sit and talk with my clients much like other therapists. But then there might be times where I have an idea of a way that we can use movement with what we're talking about that would help the client deepen their experience of what they're doing. And then also a lot of what I do is just helping people focus in on their bodies and notice when they're talking about something, helping them notice what's happening at this moment in their bodies.
Could you give us an example of a client that you might have worked with in that way?
Sure, yeah. Well, it could be as simple as someone saying, well, I feel really sad right now, and just helping them feel what sadness actually feels like in their body. Because anytime we have an emotion, the emotion actually is our interpretation of physical sensations in the body. So you feel sadness, we all probably have had the experience of, we talk about our heart being broken, or we talk about, the pit of my stomach, or nervousness is like, butterflies, or, we actually have physical sensations that are the emotion. Sometimes we label it as anxiety, and it might just be we've had too much coffee. Literally. So we have the physical sensation, and then we say, oh, I'm having this sensation, I must be anxious. And then it turns out you just need to have decaf.
Is it therapeutic for people to have you do that?
For one thing, it helps people become more aware of what's happening to them in the moment. And that awareness in and of itself opens up lots of tools for how to transform that then, how to change, Okay. So the change might be physically by using relaxation or breath or using certain types of movement to release, tension or energy in the body. Or it just helps people go deeper into what the feeling is, and then they can kind of watch how it changes or get to know it better and understand more why they're sad or how that connects to their lives.
Yeah, I imagine that it would do those things. It would help people be aware of their emotions. And it almost seems like it might validate their feelings a little more. That there's a physical sensation. It's like, oh, my body is telling me something. Someone's recognizing that, and we're talking about it, and it's my emotions, and this makes people feel more validated.
Right. Yeah, our society or our culture seems to have gotten more and more into this idea of like getting away from anything that's negative. You know, so I'm having what I label a negative feeling. I should try to feel better and like get away from it and look at happy things, or distract myself with TV or food or drugs or, you know, whatever it is. So for many people, it's a really new experience to go, oh, you mean you want me to move into that feeling more? You want me to actually feel it more? You've got something going on that's actually emotional, but we label it as, oh, I'm having a physical pain. And lots of people show up in doctors' offices and actually they're depressed, you know, or they have anxiety. I mean, I'm sure you see this a lot in your practice, right? And the first thing is that they go to their doctor because what they're having are the physical symptoms of those things, you know?
Yeah. I think a common thing to go to a doctor for is anxiety. They'll say, I'm shortness of breath, I think I have a heart problem. And they'll have EKG and they'll have all these tests done. Nothing's wrong. And good doctors who know about psychology will say, you know, you might be suffering from an anxiety disorder. Maybe you should see a therapist or a psychiatrist. But a lot of doctors, they don't do that. They might even know about it, but they just don't feel like it's their place. Maybe they feel that they don't want to insult somebody. That they have a psychological problem. So do you use movement with all your clients, or do some clients not need it or they don't take to it?
Some clients want to use movement and are coming to me specifically because they want to use movement or are intrigued by that. Other people are just coming in for therapy and they were referred to me and they got a good recommendation or whatever, hopefully. So it really just depends on the client. Some clients we just talk 99% of the time. But even within the talking, like I mentioned a minute ago, I really use a lot of body awareness in my practice. So what we're talking about, I usually bring it back to the body. How are you aware of feeling that in your body? You know, like we kind of stop a lot of our body processes from bringing to fullness, right? So oftentimes we might feel like, I'm really pissed off, you know? It's like, well, what is this? This is me holding back the fullness of that movement, which might be, you know, punching or whatever that looks like. And there's good reason why we do impulse control in the world, because if we all went around punching everybody, if we got mad, that wouldn't be a good thing.
My therapist said I'm not supposed to
right, let it out. Right, so this is a place where you can let it out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So might people do that? Might people jump up and you might say, hey, go for it, and they might just start swinging around and, you know, hitting stuff?
This kind of brings us into some of the stuff I have in the room here that's available. So
maybe you could demonstrate some of these.
Yeah. Actually, would you guys be interested in trying out some stuff? You would love to punch it. Okay.
So we're here on location without Jody. I don't know what happened to her. But
wow. Oh, that was a surprise. Sometimes when we get surprised, we get scared.
I know, I tensed up. Is this a poker table?
This is an awesome prop. It's actually called a gymnastics octagonal tumbler.
Whoa. Hey, can you go get the gymnastics octagonal tumbler, please?
Yeah, I don't actually call it that. I just call it the bolster, and I don't use it for whatever. I don't even know what gymnasts actually use this for, but I use it for a lot of different things. And we were talking about, Kirk was asking about, well, do people just get up then and punch something, right? So I don't want them punching the wall because that might cause some damage either to the wall or to themselves, more likely. So what one thing that this is great for, I'm going to invite you guys to just feel that a little bit. Yeah, give it a little kick too. See what?
Punch me though.
Oh yes. Oh, I see Jody's got really something going on there. Okay, we'll hold it. We'll hold it.
You can go ahead. Ladies first.
Yeah, be careful with your foot still. Yeah.
Yeah, don't hurt your foot.
You don't want. Oh my gosh, she takes karate. Oh, don't hurt yourself. All right, so
Claude Van Jody.
So this could actually be a great way of letting out some frustration. Now you might notice that
African dance.
Yes.
Hitting it like that though, you could actually hurt your hand a little bit. I would like to invite you to
Smoke out of it?
No, I would like you to hit this with it.
Don't hit my hands. Oh man.
How satisfying is that?
Oh, wow.
It's great.
So, I'm mad.
Did you believe him?
No.
No. Why?
Why did you not believe
It's
it?
very weak.
Okay. Let me try. I'm angry!
Ouch.
to believe
Did you see how his whole body, he's used his whole body in the second one, and it was more believable? Right?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because, you know, you can certainly be like, ugh.
Right.
But if you really like,
like that. Did you feel that?
yeah.
And if you also notice, so you're just simulating it, right? But even just playing around with it, you can notice pretty quickly that stuff starts coming up.
Well,
like the way your face, like you didn't just go,
right.
You went, there's a natural movement in the face that begins to happen.
And I was gonna say that even though I was simulating it, I couldn't help but then getting like a little bit of an adrenaline rush or something.
Right.
On the second one, I could sit here all day long.
It's kind of satisfying, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Berto, what if I do this?
Ow.
Does that make you mad?
It just loses brain cells. So. Ow. I think most of Jody's anger is directed at me. So this thing is very satisfying. Now, why is it so satisfying? Why does this help me relieve my tension or get my anger out?
It's a good question. So your tension is actually stored in your body. So kind of like we were talking about earlier. So sadness is in your body. There's actually neurons around your heart and in your gut, in addition to your brain. We store tension and anger, and we all know this. You know, we all feel it. When you get really angry, something happens in your body. You might feel flushed. Your body essentially prepares for flight or fight. You know, so it doesn't matter that, you know, you might be standing in the checkout line and someone cuts in front of you. Your body treats that as some kind of threat, and you get ready. You know, your body prepares. So this helps you get that out of your body. It helps sort of express that rather than stopping it.
In a safe way.
In a safe way. And that was one of the things I was going to say. Sometimes people are hesitant to do that because they might be talking about someone that's making them angry, and then they go, well, I don't want to hit that person.
Right.
And so I have to remind them, it's like, well, you're not hitting that person. What you're doing is releasing energy in your body to allow you to not be angry at that person in the same way anymore, or to deal with what's happening. When I was in grad school, I was in therapy myself with a dance movement therapist. This is back in Chicago, and she had one of these. And there was a day where I came in to therapy, and I said, well, you know, I don't have a lot to talk about today, so I think I just want to try moving. And she said, all right, go ahead and start. And I went up to this, and I started just drumming like we kind of did right at first. And what happened was I just allowed that to happen, and my body started taking over. And I started pounding on this thing, and then I started kicking it, and I was pounding it, kicking it, and I had my first like full-on temper tantrum.
Really?
And it was something, afterwards I kind of collapsed on the floor. I started laughing, and I said, you know, I needed to do that when I was 3. But I was always like the good little boy, you know, I didn't want to be, you know, angry or whatever. I got a lot of positive feedback for smiling a lot. I'm going to invite you to just lay down on it. But to just see what that feels like.
Can I get that thing back now?
No, you can't. No, we're not going to do that. She needs to feel safe here.
It feels good.
It feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. So you're finding a rhythm with it, right? Well, we start doing that naturally. So we use rhythm a lot with children. We do that, right? With baby, you hold the baby, they calm down. So it's a way of soothing, calming your nervous system just by doing that.
Watch out with the slobber there.
Yeah. Clean that up. So be careful there. Is that opening up your spine a little bit?
Yeah. It's great.
What do you notice when you do that, Jody?
Your socks are dirty.
Okay, Jody, we're going to need to do some work with you to bring the attention inside. So you can just...
Don't break your neck.
It's kind of feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
You know, as adults, we don't allow ourselves to play very often. It's like so much of our movement is supposed to have a purpose.
Right.
You know, it's like, well, what's the point of that?
You try it.
Well, try it.
Right.
See what the point of it is for you.
It's good. It does stretch, like, I don't know, my back and stuff. And if that part feels right.
Is there any sort of like, you know, metaphorical opening of the
Let me try
body
this.
when you...
Well, certainly laying with the way Umberto was a minute ago, with your back and your chest open like that. I mean, just from a kind of some of the obvious things, you're opening your heart area. You're really vulnerable. A lot of emotion can come up, and it often comes up really surprisingly.
Yeah.
You know, suddenly people go, whoa, whoa, you know, that was a lot.
I practice yoga a lot, and sometimes when you're doing the back bending movements, the teacher will say, you know, it's not unusual to feel uncomfortable in this position, both physically and mentally. You might feel sick, or you might feel some emotions welling up. I never personally have felt it, but
for me, I just noticed this way, it's so childish in a good way. Like this, for example. Just imagine myself being younger. Just kind of like, let's, you know, there's time to kill. I don't have to go to work right now. It's just like, whereas when I was on my back like this, this feels like it brings up stress. Now, it might be good for therapy.
Right, exactly,
The point is that it's definitely a very different feeling. It's almost like I fear that position and I want the other position.
You couldn't get to that position just by talking sometimes, right? That's the point. And that gets you to a place that you could never get to verbally.
A big part of dance movement therapy is about having a body felt sense of something. Of an experience, of a feeling, or whatever. So you have a body felt experience, and then you connect it with a cognitive understanding. So in other words, you have the feeling, and then you connect it with sort of the other way of thinking, you know, the way that we usually think of when we talk.
It makes more sense to me to heal emotionally through movement and body. Because think about it, like if you want to heal a relationship, what's the best way? You hug, or you embrace, or you hold hands or something. You don't sit there and talk from across the room, right? You know, so in the same way, when you're healing for yourself, if you're moving, and like, you know, for you, tell me, was it kind of like infantile in a sense being?
I would love to be able to talk about certain categories of my issues like this, and it's just like it's more like you do something with your friends, you know, you're like 10 years old or something, you're like, yeah, what's going on, what are we gonna do, you know, that's the feeling I get. And it's very safe and comfortable, and I can explore that. And then I'm also curious on the other way to think, like, okay, why does this stress me out so much? Like, what am I afraid of here? Like, I know it's the physical part, but there's also more to it that I can't quite get at.
That's a really good point.
Actually, I feel very relaxed in that position.
Interesting.
And I feel very like open, like everything's stretching out. And you feel tense.
So that brings up a really good point. Sometimes people go, oh, you're a dance movement therapist. Oh, so what does this mean? You know, or whatever. Or I have this, you know, thing. What does that mean? And either that's so often that's either kind of a scary thing, like, oh, you know things about me that I don't know about myself, or that I don't want you to see, and that's scary. Or they're hoping that I can tell them something about themselves they don't know. It's more about exactly what you just said, was like, for you, that experience of draping over backwards was relaxing, and the other one held something else for you, and this was stressful, and the other one was relaxing. And so it's more, I don't have a specific thing that I do with any of these props. It's just a way of helping people explore their own experience and then talk about that. So.
And you're an observer too. In a
Right.
sense, kind of like a parent, kind of like a nurturer. Watching someone go through that experience, because they can do this on their own and maybe have some of those experiences, but really an observer enriches people's experience.
Exactly. Or I often use the word witness. Or in that field is often the word witness, and it has just a different feeling. It's not so much like, oh, I'm just watching you do something. It's, we listen, but we don't just listen. We listen with holding, a sense of holding environment, you know. We experience something differently when we're being witnessed in it. You know, and that's the thing with kids, is like, you know, the little kid will go start doing something and look back and make sure that, you know, mom or dad is watching. And, you know, I'm sure that's, you know, a safety thing, but it's also sort of like, did you see what just happened to me? You know, are you witnessing it?
Mom,
you know, some of the, exactly, no hands, you know, I'm walking on my own, and they want someone to share that excitement. Daniel Siegel, a neurobiologist, talks a lot about that one of the things is we don't just want to be seen, we want to feel felt on a neurological level. We have mirror neurons, you know, in our brain, and we connect through our body movements, through nonverbal communication, with other people all the time. And so, you know, when you're with someone and you really feel like they're there with you, it's a really different feeling than if they're just kind of in the room but you don't feel that they're present.
It's interesting about that. In my own relationship, there is a difference between, you know, being in the same room and then actually feeling like you're being felt.
Yeah.
And it is a very active thing. It does not just, you know, oh, just because you're sitting and listening to me doesn't mean that you're, and I think I understand that more than my partner does. And so sometimes it's a little frustrating, but I also have different needs than my partner does. I actually really need that active listening and, you know, feeling that I'm being felt more than he does.
I wonder, you know, I wonder if it's possible too that the way you get that feeling might be different. Like he might need that as much as you need it, but he might need it in a different way, you know, or he might have different cues that he picks up on to feel like you're really present with him.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I generally believe that everyone needs other people, and as I don't know about other cultures, but in America we're supposed to be very independent.
Right.
To be able to do everything on our own. We don't need any support. We're strong on our own. I can't believe how many times I'm working against that sentiment with clients.
Yeah.
Just the idea that you can't live life by yourself, you can't do it alone, is very novel to some people.
Yeah.
And like, oh, really? Yeah, that's how I feel, but no one's ever said that.
Right, such a relief, right?
Yeah, because we get all these other messages, and your partner might feel that same way.
Well, I was going to say also studies with, you know, those studies with children in orphanages and stuff, that children who don't receive touch die. It's not just even like, oh, they don't thrive, they actually can die. We have to have touch in order to develop properly from birth on.
So along those lines, as he was laying on his back, and he's thinking, and you're saying, oh, I don't know if this feels so good, something about this. I just had this urge to kind of, to kind of soothe you a little bit.
Oh,
and almost like I wanted to make you feel better by saying you can trust me, right? And it's okay. And I'm guessing that if we had that kind of relationship, that it might actually feel good if I, you know.
You can try.
I actually wanted to tickle you.
Oh, look at this. See all the love I could have been receiving, but I didn't. I was there by myself.
That's just a version of the thing. Right. So, would you ever do that as a therapist?
It's a really good question about touch. And I have some other props that I want to look at in relation to touch. But in this example, when he was lying over, I'm really careful about how I use touch in therapy because it can have a lot of meanings, especially for clients when their therapist touches them. When someone's draped over that way, I probably wouldn't come and touch them on their front. If they were draped the other way, it's a lot safer to have someone touch your back, you know. So I would first ask the client, you know, is it okay if I touch your back right now? And might use touch that way. And usually we'll have talked about that and what that's like for the client beforehand. On the front, if Umberto was saying that he was feeling really exposed or really vulnerable, or you used the word stressed, one way we might work with that is like put a blanket over him. So you actually have a physical sense of nurturing, you know, like when you think about being a kid and someone tucks you in, puts a blanket over you, or if you've experienced that in yoga class. I don't know if you've ever had a teacher come over and put a blanket on you.
Another thought that came to mind was that I would like to explore the same thing from the different positions.
Yeah.
You know, like talk about the same subject first, or first in the comfort of it, but then try the same subject like this, because I have a feeling that I would approach it a little differently. You know, that was my feeling there.
That's a great idea, actually.
You know how you said your mother used to yell at you or something? Your mother yelled a lot?
When I was little, my parents yelled at each other a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could try talking about that.
Yeah, and I think that those are the kind of things that might manifest itself differently, like but I'd want to
Or you could lay on your back and I could yell at you.
Oh, I see. You just want to punish me. See, this is the thing.
Yeah, Jody, we'll talk about times so we can meet later. Yeah, there's a lot.
A bigger version of a Freudian slip. So what kinds of things might you do with groups?
I do a group out in the community called Eco Dance, and I've recently started another group for men called Men Moving. And that one I'm co-leading with an art therapist, so we're using art and movement. The way I'm running those groups is I'm not running them as therapy groups as much as movement experiences. So if I was working with a couple, some of the ways we might use movement would be, one way would be, for example, to invite one of the people in the couple to be with me in the witnessing role, you know, and to really pay attention or tune in to their partner and witness that. And so it's an experience of, you might not do that right away, depending on how the couple, what they're coming in for, and you know how stressed out their relationship is. But it's a way of, you could kind of coach one person to be in the role of really tending to the other partner, and then try it the other way.
I can imagine that would be very helpful for couples.
Right.
I mean, I'm just imagining it in my mind, and I'm thinking how powerful it would be to be in that position of, is how often for your partners do you truly witness them, right? Or are you truly witnessed by them?
Oh, you're going to have your time, and then I'm going to have my time. You know, because sometimes in couples, that's exactly the thing, is people are kind of vying for the top position, you know, or time, you know. Another way that I might work with couples in movement would be to have people mirror each other in movement. So it's a way of really tuning in to what the other person's doing physically.
Let's try. Yeah.
So I'm going to have Jody first here. Why don't I stand on the other side? I'm going to have you first just begin to move, and you can just move in your arms, say, and just for right now. So, and then Umberto, I'm going to have you start just trying to follow her movements as exactly as you can. And so, yeah, so just allow that movement to be whatever it is. And so there are several things that might happen from this. Let's imagine, Jody, that as you're moving, you end up beginning to kind of try to trick Umberto into not being able to follow your movement, right? Or you're moving really quickly, right? Exactly, right? Okay, so let's take that as a little snippet, right? We'd probably work for a lot longer.
Yeah.
So if that were happening, then we can take that. We could say, so what happened for you? Well, I was trying to make it, you know, I was just moving. He was going to need to follow me, right? And then I would find out from you what that felt like for you.
Yeah, I could probably say like, I don't know, I was trying to do the exercise and there you go, running ahead of me. And it's like,
right. And it sounds like you can already see then how we could use that as a springboard for, you know, in what ways does this happen in your relationship?
Or if I had to slow down so that he could follow me, I would be like, I'm always waiting for you.
There you
I'm
go.
always making sure that you're okay. You know, I'm
exactly.
always a caretaker.
I could see that being a form of like developing intimacy.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's another way, right?
Like, it's very musical.
Well, it's really not a very comfortable thing to do. I mean, it's kind of like,
and you really have to pay attention.
it's kind of silly. I mean, I know that my boyfriend and we would probably be laughing at each other, you know. But I don't know if that's because we'd be uncomfortable or because we're just sort of silly together.
But I wonder, because you know, maybe you could have fun with it, right? You could be like the types of things you do.
Yeah.
Well, and humor is one of the ways that we have intimacy in our lives, you know. So you would feel into that, right? And the thing is that word silly actually comes up a lot. You know, so people are like interested, they get the idea of, oh, I could use movement, and that could be really useful, and I would love to feel more free. But the actual feeling of like, okay, well, if we go out and move, that's not something that we do a lot in our culture. It's just free-form movement. Wow, I'm going to be exposed. What am I going to look like? Am I going to look silly?
Yeah.
So a lot of those feelings actually become what we work with, right? So
unless you're like high and you're at a dead show.
That's why a lot of people use drugs and alcohol, right? We use alcohol so that we don't feel silly at a party, or we feel more free to express who we are.
It's not like we're being filmed, so there's nothing to worry about.
Oh!
Well, and tell me, you know, just from your experience, you're thinking, well, we would giggle a lot, right?
Yeah.
Well, so, you know, that makes me think one of two things. I think, well, either it is just silly, right? It's just not really your thing. Or the silliness is a fear of intimacy, of deeper feeling, of being vulnerable to people watching us.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I bought this book has some similar, it has exercises that you're supposed to do with your partner to increase intimacy, and some of them are a little weird, but other ones are very interesting, and I can see how they would create intimacy, but it feels weird to me to do those things, you know?
At home, you mean?
Yeah, like for example, one of them is like, you're supposed to like pretend that your partner is like a baby, and you're supposed to like cradle them. And I just, for me, I'm like, okay, that's weird.
But can you imagine how wonderful that could be if it didn't feel weird?
Yeah, I think it would be great.
How would it feel different, do you think, than what it felt?
Well, you know, I think even if you've been with someone for a long time, you still like, you know, what are they going to think about that? And,
right.
you know,
oh,
that's embarrassing or whatever. Which, when you think about it, if you're going to spend your whole life with someone, you would really want to be with someone that you could be comfortable doing anything.
Right.
You know, like just like
wouldn't that be great?
Yourself. It would be.
I mean, wouldn't it be great to be that vulnerable that you could just sort of really let go and let your partner just hold you and rock you? The thing is that it's kind of hard to do that at home on your own, you know, because you don't necessarily have the bridge from here to there. It's like, well, we want to be really vulnerable, but what are the tools that we have to get there with each other? And so coming in here would be a way of bridging that, because you wouldn't have to set that up, you know?
Right.
And there would be a time and a place that's set up for that. And the whole point is that the silliness gets to be part of it. You're not expected to go from, well, I'm a little bit nervous about it, to, oh, this is what, you know, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I'm nervous about it. Oh, this feels really silly. I don't know what to do. And then, well, let's work with that. Let's be with the silliness. There's nothing wrong with it feeling silly. You know, how comfortable can we be feeling silly with each other?
Would it help if he put on diapers and like every morning? That would make you feel more comfortable.
I think there's whole communities that involved in that kind of thing.
Or dressed up in a furry outfit.
Well, and addressing those communities, honestly, I mean, those are outlets that are seen as potentially deviant. But they're really healthy expressions of some of our inner desires.
Right, and how vulnerable is that, really? You know, it's like we laugh about it, but wow.
No, it's
kind of cool, really.
In fact, I used to watch Real Sex on HBO, which is I thought a great show that showcased all sorts of aspects of sexuality around the world and things like that. And often they would have, you know, things like that, or they'd have communes of people that are, you know, live in alternate stuff. But actually, they sounded so healthy in a way, like, because they had an openness and an awareness of who they are and what they like, what they don't like, that you laugh at first and you're like, that's kind of enviable.
It's kind of like with dance, the way people will talk about, like, especially men in our culture, and will be in a dance situation and there'll be this kind of mock dance, right? That's sort of like, oh, this is what dancing looks like, you know? Like, here's me dancing, right? And I'm not taking it seriously, so if I look stupid, I was just joking anyway.
Do I want to be that person? Because I think those people look silly. So, you know, like... So, you know, but I'm not saying...
That's a great point.
There's probably something wrong with me.
Well, but then it's like, well, why do I think those people look silly?
I mean, to use a previous episode, we talked about projecting and projective identification. And it's possible, I'm not analyzing you, as they say, but it's possible, as an option here, is that you're projecting on your vulnerability, you know, your geekiness or your, whatever you want to call it, onto someone else, and then you're saying, ugh. Right? Because no one likes to think of themselves as geeky, but everyone has a geeky aspect to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you project it out, and then you make fun of it, and then you feel better, and you walk away. I'm not geeky, it's them.
Yeah.
But it's really you that's geeky.
I mean, truthfully, I'm kind of geeky, but I also think I'm kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. Well, so along those lines, when I think of dance movement therapy, the first thing that comes to my mind, and you know, is a person-free movement, almost like free association movement.
Right.
Do you do that as well?
I do, yeah. One form of that is called authentic movement.
Okay.
That involves a mover and a witness. That could either be used for in a therapy setting, or it could be used on its own. So there are people doing authentic movement around Seattle, and sometimes they're using it for therapy, counseling purposes, and other times it's used as a movement discipline. And the mover, in that sense, will close their eyes and feel into their body and just kind of wait for an impulse to move. And which might just be, your finger moving, or it might...
Readjusting themselves.
Readjusting themselves, yeah, and then it might just be following that then, And the idea in that is that you get to a place of, it feels almost as if you're being moved. You're following the movement rather than deciding how to move. So I think you're probably neurologically, you're tapping into a different part of your brain, and you're not using that kind of linear conscious movement, but you're following with curiosity.
And the idea behind that therapy is what?
The way I've used it is kind of like free association might be used. It's a way of getting to stuff that's going on much quicker than you might through talking about it. So for example, one example actually, when I was talking about the way I used that bolster that time, I didn't come in saying, I need to have a temper tantrum. Like, okay, well, let's go over here and have a temper tantrum. That probably would have felt silly, right? But it came from the place of, oh, wow, my body is taking over, like something just happened. And what I did was that I didn't stop it. It's like all the work I'd done up to that point actually allowed me to follow it rather than stop it and say, oh, this isn't what should be happening. I should stop this now. Right. So not that was authentic movement, but it's the same idea of following the body.
Yeah. So someone might move around in this room here, and they're moving around spontaneously.
Yeah.
And you're witnessing.
I'm witnessing.
And they might be experiencing something you don't know what.
Right.
They might talk about it, or they might not talk about it.
Well, in the actual discipline of authentic movement, we wouldn't talk during that. There's kind of a whole structure around it. I would use it more loosely in here, and have used it more loosely, where some people talking about what they're experiencing helps deepen their experience, and there can be communication between myself and the mover. Other people, they go really deep. It's kind of a meditative experience, and then we talk about it afterwards. So what happened? Well, what happened was, I don't know, nothing much happened. I was moving. Then I went to the floor really quickly, and I was laying on the floor, and then I started getting up, but I lay back down. And then we might talk about, well, using some of the words that they used. I felt really heavy. So how does feeling really heavy relate to what's happening in your life right now? So that would be one way of taking that and using it metaphorically.
Okay. I have a question about touch.
Yes.
You were mentioning before, that you're very careful about asking people, hey, is it okay if I touch you, and things like that, because there's boundary issues. Different people feel different about touch. But I have a friend that's kind of maybe on the extreme end or whatever of not wanting to be touched. And I found this out on accident one day. I was just kidding around, and I went to tickle him. And why was I tickling him? I don't know. But the point is, he freaked out. Oh. And I thought he was kidding, but then I realized I wasn't kidding. And I made a mistake early on to well, I can probably cure him. So I was like, no, here, relax, I'll do it. And then I would try to tickle him anyways, and it freaked him out more. I was like, okay, that's not working. Since then, I've come to talk to him and understand, okay, so there's some stuff from his childhood, things like that add up to why he doesn't enjoy being touched, or worse than that, why he freaks out, kind of has a little mini panic attack being touched. And we've done little exercises, totally ad hoc, totally not scientific, but where I'm like, okay, I am going to very slowly move my finger in your direction. I'm not going to touch you if you don't say it's okay. And I've gotten to the point that I can actually place my hand on his stomach, and he's okay. And at first he's like, and then he kind of calms down. It's fascinating.
Maybe he's just ticklish.
I thought so at first, but it's not just that. There really is, and he actually had issues that when he was little that make this kind of make sense. But
are you practicing without a license?
I wasn't practicing. No, it was just the kind of thing where I was just curious about this, and as a friend, I thought, well, this is there's got to be a way that we can overcome this. But certainly, I think that he should, do it professionally.
Right,
so I was asking, like, what kind of, let's say that person comes in here, and, and you notice it, or they offer it, they volunteer it. What kind of things can someone do in terms of therapy to help with that?
I don't know what I would do exactly. I've never been in that situation. I could imagine working with them on touching themselves and really feeling into what happens when they do that. So let me show you another prop.
It's very nice, actually. It's like it encapsulates and feels supported a little bit, like like it's just holding in place. And in fact, it makes my front side feel unsecured, exposed, in danger.
You're actually physically being supported.
Right.
And that feels supportive.
Right.
They're the same thing, essentially.
Yeah, like you're holding me up.
Right.
Yeah. If you were a couple and you're one of the people in the couple and you're holding me up and we have trust issues.
Yeah. What are you noticing happening right now?
She goes one way, I go the other.
Right.
We're working together.
So you're not physically touching, but your body movement is physically affecting your body movement, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, you're being touched, but you're not being touched directly. So it's kind of a safe way of working with touch. And in groups, if this were larger, I'm going to get in it with you guys. If this were a little bit larger, this might feel a little too intimate for a group. I've used really large ones when I used to work in hospitals. We used to work in a psych unit of a hospital, and we used a large one. And you can really get a feeling, there we go. So you can really feel the group. There's
try to be selfish or something.
Right.
I can try to sabotage.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. And so if I felt like someone in the group was going to do that, we probably wouldn't start with this, right? We would maybe start just holding it together, where it's safer.
How does my butt look?
Which is a type of safety issue, right?
Good question.
It's a body image safety issue.
There you go.
Not just for this, but in general in these exercises. How do I look? It's kind of a self-awareness, like.
It looks blue. I want to get in here too. You guys, I was being left out.
Yes.
Maybe Tony, you could get in.
Yeah,
maybe we can.
Here.
Can we? Yeah, you're gonna get in.
Yes, we can film.
Awesome.
Nice.
This is great. So let's. Why don't we finish with just a little bit of movement here? Okay.
Should we move in a circle around him?
Yeah, let's move in a circle around him.
Thanks for joining us.
To where it all begins.
I'm getting dizzy, actually.
Are you? Oh.
There we go, because he was warm earlier, so now we're cooling you down there, cameraman. Oh, careful.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, this was awesome. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks. And then if we go like this.
Uh-oh.
No, we don't actually want him to fall. Jody, you are like prime difficult client.
Please email us at contact@psychologyinseattle.com if you're looking for a therapist. Or if you're looking to hire our highly competent camera expert, Jason Neuerberg, as a videographer or a still photographer. Or if you want to hire Lee Tavalis as an edutainer. Or if you want to join Umberto's Lufa pyramid scheme. Or if you want to ask us an anonymous question. Or if you want to comment on the show. Or if you'd like to contribute to the show somehow. Again, that's contact@psychologyinseattle.com. Subscribe to the audio podcast on iTunes or on your MP3 player software. Become a fan of our Facebook page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Local music provided by Missionary.